Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video. So in this Soul Origins in 7 Rays of Light video series, we've been talking all about Source and the fractals of Source, or essentially how Source breaks itself down in order to ultimately know itself. In each of the breakdowns or fractals of Source, going down the chain, I'll put that graphic up on the screen, what we've been talking about in the last 2 videos. So in this universal energy cycle of a physical incarnation, as Source breaks itself down further and further, each aspect is basically a manifestation of the aspect above it. So it's a continual and continuous cycle of micro and macro all existing together to create ultimately the ebb and flow of the universe. And the energy that allows this cycle to continue throughout the entire universe is that life force energy that comes directly from Source. In your own individual universal energy cycle, when you have an incarnation, we are each creating our own universes. The life force energy that flows throughout your own individual universe, your own cycle, is the energy that you put out from yourself. So if you see yourself as an entity of basically Source itself, and everything that manifests from you are basically fractals of you in manifestation form, and your energy continues throughout this universal energy cycle of your own individual incarnation or your own physical incarnation. Your own individual universal energy cycle exists alongside many, many other people's other manifestations, universal energy cycles. And you are all existing with your own universe, creating your own universe. At the same time, you are part of a macro universe that exists above you, the fractal that comes above you, which is either the collective or Gaia herself. So we have to keep in mind this micro and macro of everything that exists, how we are all connected to each other. And if you want a better, longer, in-depth explanation of the universal energy cycle of the physical incarnation, make sure that you watch the last 2 videos that I did of Soul Origins and the 7 Rays of Light, Part 4 and Part 5. In this video, we are talking Part 6. In Part 6, we are breaking it down even further. We're going to be talking about the 7 pools of Source consciousness. What does this mean? Well, in my conversations with Abe, in terms of my Q&A, asking for them to explain further about Soul Origins, 7 Rays of Light, this universal energy cycle, it sort of started to take shape into diving even deeper into how souls sort of find their way back to Source. And well, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and get right into this video so that you can kind of see my thought process. I'm going to read everything that I wrote down because all of this came through in writing first. If you want to follow along, I'm going to put a link to my blog below in the description. It might be easier to read what comes through. So let's get right into this continuation of Soul Origins and the 7 Rays of Light. So I was questioning them more about this universal energetic cycle of the physical incarnation, just to get a better idea of how this cycle works. I asked, so if we are in the cycle of our own physical incarnation's universal energetic cycle, if we're creating our own universe within our physical incarnation, I asked, does this mean that the people in my life are there because I created them? Or are they also an illusion? Are they my manifestation? And what came through was, no, they are real in your experience, having their own experience, creating their own universe, and cycling their energy within their own physical incarnation's universal energetic cycle. they open into your physical experience to open strong expansion within you, or because they match your vibration, or because they serve another purpose. The people, places, events, and things in your life are not random, but always serve a purpose. You open things in your reality through your universal energetic cycle of your physical incarnation, creating your reality through the energetic universe that you open within and without your physical incarnation. So you sweep things into your energetic field to open its energy to cycle in your own universal energetic cycle. And you do the same for the other person's energy. In other words, everything in your experience is there for you to say yes or say no to. When you say yes to it, you sweep that energy into your universal energetic cycle, and that will kind of combine into the pot, the stew of your energy and this cycle, that this own universe that you're creating for yourself. And it combines or creates and merges with your energy, and that adds to your energy field. It adds to your creations. It adds to your own universal cycle. It adds to your individual universe that you're creating for yourself. The same thing goes with the things that you can say no to. If you decide to put your attention to the things that you do not want, you're still sweeping that energy into your cycle. You're still sweeping that energy into your universe. So this is why it's important to see in your reality the things that you say yes to and the things that you say no to, and focus on the things that you want versus focusing on the things that you do not want. Because whatever you focus on is that energy is going to be swept into your universal energetic cycle, which creates your own universe, which creates your reality. They're saying that the people in your life are there to serve a purpose. So they are exchanging energy with you to serve a purpose. When you exchange energy with a person, that energy is swept into your universal energy cycle. The same thing goes with that person's energy cycle. Your energy is swept into their cycle. So it's that exchange of energy that's constantly happening with everything that you come across in your awareness, in your reality, the things that you say yes to, the people that you really connect with, even the people that you do not connect with. For people that you do not connect with, or people that you are having issues with or some sort of trouble with, it gives you an opportunity to shift that energy for both of you. So it's like that person that you connect with, that energy exchange is easy. You know, you're both sweeping things into your energy cycles that you want. For the person that you do not connect with, that person actually serves a purpose. It serves a purpose in helping you to sort of clean out your energy cycle if you're able to put your attention to the releasing of that energy versus bringing that energy into your cycle or into your universal energy cycle. So it's very much about your perspective on how you see things. So they're saying, for example, they want me to go further into the people that you do not connect with. So if you have a relationship, a parent, a sibling, a friendship, or even some random person that you're not connecting with, everything you have to understand is a reflection or a mirror of you. So there's something within you that is not connecting here. Like this person is bringing something out in you that you're not particularly in favor of. When you're able to understand that and use that perception, this outside perception, this greater perception of seeing how this person is serving a purpose, you can use this to clear that energy out of your cycle. You're saying, I do not want this. So you're releasing that energy in a way that serves you. When you focus on something that you do not want and you sort of add more fuel to that fire, that sweeps that energy into your universal energetic cycle. When you focus on something that you do not want and you make the intention to release it, then it helps to release that energy. So this all comes back down to manifestation. When you make the intention to release energy because it's being brought to your attention with this other person, it allows you to shift the energy between the two of you. So that energy of disconnection is there for a reason, whether it's a past life thing, a current life thing, whatever, it's there. And there's something within your two energy fields, your two energy cycles that are not, it's causing resistance. It's not causing harmony or balance together. It's not in alignment. So when you're able to shift that energy consciously between the two of you, you're shifting and clearing the energy basically for both of you. And ultimately, this shifting of energy aids in your expansion and it aids in the other person's expansion. And this is what they say next. They say, opening these seemingly outside energies, like energies that you think are outside of you, when you open yourself to all of this energy and becoming aware of all this energy, you open that energy into your universal energetic cycle in a way that is able to expand your experiences or offer more expansion through your experiences. They said you can either consciously and deliberately create your expansion or very not deliberately create your expansion. Either way, the energy will continue cycling in your physical incarnation's universal energetic cycle. Do you want to continue washing your clothes with dirty water, they ask, or do you want to add some soap and clean water? In other words, this goes back to what I was saying about the energy that you sweep into your universal cycle, into your universe, your individual universe. You can focus on what you do want, or you can focus on what you do not want. Either way, this goes back to manifestation. Whatever you're focusing on, you're adding more momentum to, you're adding, you're sweeping into your vibration, you're sweeping into your energetic cycle, and that's going to cycle through your own individual universe to create your universe and your reality. What came through was that in your ascension, your soul's connection to consciousness opens up into higher and higher pools of vibration. Because it cannot interfere directly, like I was saying, Source opened shards of itself to assist with the universe. These shards are not souls themselves, but what is best known as pools of consciousness. So they resemble sort of like pools. What I was shown was sort of like if you're on a hike, for example, and at the end of the hike, you're up in the mountains and there's this beautiful waterfall and this beautiful pond or pool of water or pools of water. Maybe there's multiple, but that's kind of how it was shown to me, in where it's kind of at the end of the journey almost, where it's at the peak of the journey of, for example, you're a hike and it's this reward. But anyway, that's how it was shown to me. They said that in these pools of consciousness is where souls in their evolution and ascension can tap into. Think of these pools of consciousness or shards of source as what you would know of as the fountain of youth, meaning that it kind of resembles what we think of as the fountain of youth. It's very, is there such a thing? It's kind of like a mythical, mystical thing, but has such a glorious thing that comes with it. They go on to say that not many souls will reach it, but those who do are able to open the greater knowledge and energy of Source onto the planet. Many higher vibrational souls who incarnated on your planet opened the journey to these pools of source consciousness in order to help bring in source energy to the planet during this great shift of Gaia. So again, I had a vision of these 7 pools of source consciousness. They are different from the 7 rays of light that stem from the great central sun. The 7 pools of source consciousness are similar to the 7 rays of light, as they are expressions of source itself, but the 7 pools of source consciousness hold that deeper knowledge that comes straight from source, not the reflection of source, which is the great central sun and the 7 rays of light. They go on to say that the journey to these 7 pools of source consciousness is not easy. Many souls do not reach it in a single incarnation. Many souls have started long ago in order to be able to reach it in this very important incarnation period. The souls who do reach the 7 pools of source consciousness will only open into one of the 7 pools, opening the knowledge of that pool of source consciousness onto the planet. I asked, will anyone open all 7 pools of source consciousness? And what came through was no. The energy is much too great. This is why it's important to work together. Souls all over the planet will open to different pools of consciousness and share the knowledge that they bring forward. Knowledge of all 7 pools of source consciousness will pour onto the planet at different stages of your Earth's ascension, through different people, different souls. This is how Source is able to help assist in the ascension without directly interfering. When a soul is able to make the journey to one of the 7 pools of source consciousness, it transforms the energy of the soul. No soul is born directly out of Source itself. So this is becoming a little bit more clear in terms of how I was talking about the 7 rays of light in part 4 and part 5 of this 7 rays of light series. We talk more about how souls are birthed through that reflection of source, the 3rd ray of light, the great central sun, birthed through one of the 7 rays of light in its journey as a soul. So again, they said that all souls are born out of the reflection of source to begin its incarnation cycle within a universe. Through incarnations and experiences, the soul has the opportunity to know itself and open into higher and higher vibrations and forms of consciousness. Reaching the 7 pools of source consciousness opens the soul to complete transformation. The soul opens fully into source energy, and even what it was saying, how when a soul reaches the 7 pools of source consciousness, it's only going to ultimately open into one of these 7 pools, but it will still open fully into source energy, even just reaching one of those pools. And they said that the soul then transmutes into full source energy as a separate entity of the greater source energy. When this was coming through, it felt like a very long journey of the soul to reach this part of, or this place in where it could even reach the 7 pools of source consciousness. And this is what that incarnation cycle, a soul incarnating in many different lives over many, many different Earth years, and going between younger souls and older souls. A soul being birthed into a universe is an experience itself. It is a journey for the soul to get to a place in where it can raise its vibration back up to be able to reach its vibration at birth and above. The journey of a soul itself is to know itself, just as Source's journey is to know itself. So it is quite a long process in order for a soul to get to a point in where it can get reached one of the 7 poles of source consciousness. In order for a soul to really know itself as well, it needs to go through many, many different lives, because it's in a physical incarnation, it's in a physical experience that the soul can get to know itself more. That's why it came through how many souls have been on this journey towards reaching the 7 poles of source consciousness for a very, very long time. Their journey started many, many years ago, many, many lifetimes ago, in order to be in this place right now, in where it can reach the 7 poles of source consciousness and bring that knowledge, information, and energy onto the planet. Once the soul is able to make it to the 7 poles of source consciousness, what came through is that it transmutes into this sort of separate entity. Still, it merges back with source, but it also is still its own soul. So it kind of transforms into a source soul. They said that the energy of this newly transformed source soul can then open into any universe where source is needed. It is no longer limited to incarnating into the universe that it was born into. So in a past video, I stated how souls born into a universe through the great central sun, basically they cycle within that universe. They keep opening and reincarnating within that same universe. A soul's journey is within that universe until it gets to the point in where it can surpass and kind of reach the 7 poles of source consciousness, merge back to source, in where it can then, go and travel wherever source is needed, because it's now a source soul. They go on to say that once the soul has reached this status of becoming a source soul, it can incarnate into any universe that it is needed. It can go to any universe, anywhere that was created by the source that it is connected to. Source exists outside of the universe and possibly creates many different universes. It was told to me that source is part of its own greater experience. The great central sun is the reflection of source within a direct universe. So the great central sun is basically the source of the universe, or within the universe, and then source itself is the source outside of the universe. I asked, once a soul reaches this point of becoming a source soul, can it ever turn back? And what came through was yes and no. It can open lower vibration through an incarnation, but after its transition out of that incarnation, these souls will always return back to source. These source souls will incarnate where they are needed. This includes lower vibrational planets, this includes higher vibrational planets, and anything in between, anything beyond. To do so, source joins with the great central sun of the universe in wherever that source soul or souls are needed. And the source soul is birthed directly out of the great central sun, not through any of the 7 rays. This is because the mission of the source soul or source souls is the mission directly from source, not directly from any of the 7 rays that stem from the great central sun. So in other words, if a source soul is needed in a universe, that source soul will kind of, I'm kind of seeing that source soul going through a tunnel, and it like pops out of the great central sun, because the great central sun is like a portal into the actual universe, because source is outside of the universe. So source souls need to get into the universe somehow. So it goes through this portal or this tunnel and is popped out of the great central sun within the universe that it's needed. And it does not, it doesn't pop out in any of one of the 7 rays of light. It just pops out and then goes wherever it's needed. Because that source soul, its mission comes straight from source, versus the souls that are birthed through one of the 7 rays of light, their mission is more tailored towards that ray of light that they were born out of, or that they came through. What came through is that when source souls, not the great central sun souls, when source souls incarnate, they go where they are needed. So they often open into very big missions on the planet, wherever they incarnate. And they said that Jesus was one of these source souls. And they also said that there are not many source souls. I asked, but through the ascension of the planets and galaxies and universes, won't there be more souls opening into the 7 pools of source consciousness and going through that transformation and transmutation process of their souls into source souls? Because I assume if we are ascending, if our souls are ascending, if the galaxy is ascending, the planet's ascending, the universe is ascending, everything is connected, then I feel like there's going to be a step up to very many souls in vibration and consciousness to be able to make it, a step higher, to be able to reach this 7 pools of source consciousness. And what came through was yes, just simply yes. And I asked, what happens when there comes an influx of source souls? Because a while ago, I don't remember if I put this out into a video or if this is something we were just talking about between me and Abe, but what came through was that source doesn't really like to send souls out directly from source as much unless they're actually needed, because source itself, it cannot experience through these souls the same way that it can experience through the souls from its reflection. So it's like a source soul versus a soul that's still being birthed out of the great central sun. Source itself can experience more from that soul birthed out of the great central sun than it can experience from that source soul, because it already is source itself in that source soul. So there's nothing really more to gather from that source soul. It's sending the source souls out purely and mostly just to spread source energy and to be able to assist and offer its energy, offer its knowledge and assistance to wherever it's needed. But it's through the experience of souls that are still being birthed and still having their experience from the great central sun. That's where it's source, that's the energy pinging back to source and feeding back to source in terms of helping source know itself more. And I just wanted to know that, in a universe, if there comes a time when there are, very many souls that have reached source already, what happens to that universe? And what came through is that when there becomes an influx of source souls, source finds open universes outside of itself to send source souls. This opens source into another source's universe. In other words, when a universe becomes so high vibrational that most of its souls have found their way back to source, have found their way to the 7 pools of source consciousness, source will take those source souls, if they're not needed in any of source's universes, and send them to a universe outside of our source's universes. So source is going to send them to another source's universe. This allows our source to know itself even more from those souls going into another source's universe, if that makes sense. And in that way, the source souls can experience new things, and that's when source souls become valuable in their experience of this outside universe, outside of our source's universes. They go on to say that when this happens, source opens experience through these source souls that it sent in an outside universe that exists outside of its own creation. This adds to the expansion of source and opens source to create even more universes. When a universe expands so much that all the souls within that universe's journey find their way to one of the 7 pools of source consciousness, meaning that when all the souls raise their vibration high enough to reach into or tap into or find one of the 7 pools of source consciousness, then that universe has expanded all that it needed to and basically collapses in on itself. The collapse is the entire universe returning back to its source. I asked, what happens then? What happens next? And they showed me a vision of someone laying back on a lazy boy couch, like, end of the day, time to put up my feet, socks off. And, but they were just joking. But they said, just because one universe has completed its expansion does not mean that all universes have completed their expansions. Source is continually expanding. When a universe collapses in on itself due to completion of expansion, all the souls from that universe open into source and are basically kind of reborn, is what came through, reborn again into another universe. Again, going through the same motions of being birthed out of one of the 7 rays of the great central sun. However, in another universe, there could be more than the 7 rays of light. There could be less than 7 rays of light. There are different laws that are applied to different universes. In our direct universe, there are 7 rays of light, but they're basically saying that when a universe collapses in on itself, the souls from that universe will go and be born into another universe through their great central sun. Another thing that's possible that's coming to me right now is that this goes back into what I spoke about in my video, Convoluted Time series, part 1, part 2, part 3, how we go through these infinite time loops. So it's also a possibility that when a universe collapses in on itself, it basically is reborn just to start that entire time loop all over again from the very beginning. So the souls are reborn and keep doing what they're doing through these infinite time loops, if that makes sense. Or the souls could go to a whole different universe. Anything really is possible. They said, all the souls, including the ones from before that kept returning to source, go back to the beginning in the new birth of a new universe once the entire original universe has what came through as game ended. In other words, if the universe is still existing and souls find their way back to source and become source souls, for as long as that universe is existing, those source souls will continue returning back to source, going out for a mission, returning back to source. If their original universe game ends because it's expanded so much that it expanded all it needed to, then those source souls will go back to the beginning and be born into another universe, along with all the other souls that came from their direct or their original universe. So I'm going to put on the screen just kind of a visual of what I've been talking about before and how it relates to the 7 pools of source consciousness. So this first graphic is something that I've shown you before, talking about the 7 rays of light and how it can be sort of seen as this target board. The 7 rays of light again, are 7 expressions or qualities of God. They are vibrations or frequencies. And basically, the soul works to align its energy towards the 7 rays of light and make its way inward, make its way into higher vibration. This allows the soul to know itself, but a lot of lower vibrational souls aren't even on this target board. They are off of the target board, so we're kind of in a place where a lot of souls are beginning to find their way into these higher vibrations and make it at least into the 7th ray of light or the 6th ray of light, moving inward into higher vibration. If you want to learn more about this target board, I think I spoke about it in my first 3 videos of the 7 rays of light soul origin series. I'll put those links below, and I explain a lot more about the inward journey of the soul through the 7 rays of light. Now, in connection to the 7 pools of source consciousness, basically we can take this same target board, and I just cut it in half so that we can kind of zoom in and look closer into the center, which is indicated as source. So in the original graphic, I have the center indicated as source or source energy. So we're going to look closer at it. So here I have the cutoff target board, and in the center I have source energy. And then I have, actually, this is what it was shown to me, that this is kind of where those 7 pools of source consciousness are located within the universe. Once the soul is able to reach the innermost part of that target board, this is about raising that soul vibration frequency so that the soul can align to an energy frequency closer to source itself. Because if a soul vibration or frequency is low vibrational, it's not even on this 7 rays of light target board, or maybe it's on the 7th or 6th ray, it's still too low of a vibration to be able to match the energy of source. So it can't necessarily merge back to source without raising its frequency and vibration to become a match, a closer match to source, so that it can merge back to source, basically. And it was just shown to me that this is the journey of a soul and the evolution of the soul. So as a soul, through its journey, makes its way back through the target board, inward into the target board, back to source energy vibration, it can reach these 7 pools of source consciousness, which exist within the universe, because source exists outside of the universe, but it feeds its energy into these 7 pools of source consciousness so that souls within the universe can have access to direct source energy in the form of consciousness. And again, this was just shown to me that this is the ultimate journey of the soul and the evolution of the soul. Even if the soul is not aware because they're stuck in lower vibration, eventually they will become aware that, the journey of being a soul is evolving and becoming something more than what it is, because there is ever expansion, not only in the universe, but in a soul, in energy. It's always expanding. And I think that's the ultimate, what evolving as a soul is about. It's about the forever expansion. But at the same time, we can argue that even in contraction is expansion, even in contrast is expansion. So the way that a soul expands is going to be different for every soul, and it's not going to be the same. The journey towards reaching the innermost part of the target board, that source energy, the 7 pools of source consciousness, that journey is going to be different for every single soul. I also had a personal question for any of you fellow QHHT practitioners or BQH practitioners. When I used to practice beyond quantum healing, past life regression, I would have either entity attachments come up with my clients, or negative energy, or we wanted to release past energy. And a lot of times what I would do is I would work with my clients' spirit guidance teams to help release that energy, that lower vibrational energy or attachment or entity or whatever. And we would, well, in my sort of intention, I would send that energy back to source to be cleansed and cleared. And so I asked Abe, what happened there? Was I sending these lower vibrational energies straight to source? And what came through was no, because like what I just said, their vibration wouldn't match source. So actually what was happening in these sessions is the lower vibrational energy, the entity or attachment, that energy was actually sent, or it was put through a cleansing and clearing process, releasing that energy, or kind of like they're showing me a boot camp for the energy or the lower vibrational energy. And they're saying this boot camp is kind of like in the Great Central Sun. So it goes through this cleansing and clearing process through the Great Central Sun, not source itself. But in our intention as a practitioner, as a healer, light worker, when you're making the intention for lower vibrational energy to be sent back to source, to be cleansed and cleared. For example, maybe if you're clearing your house, or you feel low vibe energy, or something or dark energy or whatever that you want to release, even if you have the intention to send it back to source to be cleansed and cleared, the higher vibrational energy, the white light, your spirit guidance teams will do what it needs to release that energy. And even though you make that intention for it to go back to source, what it's really doing is going back to the Great Central Sun, or going through this cleansing and clearing process within the universe for that energy to be cleared. And then I asked, wouldn't it be the same for the Great Central Sun? Wouldn't that soul or energy need to match the vibration of the Great Central Sun to return back to the Great Central Sun? And what came through is, because the Great Central Sun exists within our universe, and the Great Central Sun is basically our parent, if you will, because the souls are birthed through the Great Central Sun. All souls will always have what came through was a rapport, or that relationship with the Great Central Sun, like a child and a parent. The Great Central Sun being more of our parent. And so all souls can be returned back to the Great Central Sun if the soul desires that experience, if the soul desires to return back to the Great Central Sun at any point in time. It has that opportunity, even if the vibrations do not match. I'm seeing kind of like a container system within the Great Central Sun, where if your vibration does not match the Great Central Sun as a soul, you can still move or merge back to the Great Central Sun, but you have to go through this boot camp to cleanse and clear any low vibrational energy in order to get to a place where you can match and become merged back to the Great Central Sun, if that was your soul's desire. Now, going back to source being outside of the universe and its ability to create multiple universes, as well as when a universe collapses in on itself and a new universe is created, basically, I asked, why does source keep opening more and more universes? What's the point? And what came through was, they just repeated themselves. They said, source elf, source elf, source elf, elf as in like Santa's elf or Santa's elves. And how I interpreted that, or how it hit me, was, oh, okay, meaning that source is a worker to a greater source, because I saw Santa's elves, one of the elves being source. And they said source's job is to open universes. And I asked, so does that mean that source, or our direct source, is stuck in its own matrix program? And what came through was yes, sort of, in a way. When a universe collapses on itself due to final expansion, due to game over, game ended, that's when source, our direct source, opens up in its own expansion. Everything is a micro and a macro. I asked, how many universes collapse? And what came through was plenty of universes collapse due to final expansion. it opens source to more and more and more greater expansion. I asked, does that mean that we are holding source back from expanding for as long as our universe exists? And what came through was yes and no. Even in contrast is expansion. They're also showing me how in our ascension as a universe, as our universe expands, then that still contributes to that greater expansion of source. I then asked, do we have lots of time left in our universe, or will it collapse on itself soon? And what came through was, oh yes, lots of time left in your universe. Expansion of your direct universe will keep going on for eons, but souls opening to source energy will become greater and greater. I asked, does this mean that most higher dimensional beings open to source energy because they're higher dimensional or even higher vibrational? And what came through was no. Even higher dimensional beings are on their journey back to the 7 pools of source consciousness. In your earth experience, even when you think you know oneness, you still are not even close to the vibrational frequency of the true source oneness. In your lower vibrational state, you simply cannot fathom it. This is why, as souls, you work your way into knowing yourself in each incarnation so that you can incarnate into higher and higher dimensions and vibrational frequencies to get you closer to reaching the 7 pools of source consciousness and ultimately integrating back to source. They go on to say that there are souls that have incarnated in your Earth's experience who have already journeyed and made it to the 7 pools of source consciousness and already integrated back with source. They have incarnated in your Earth's experience, taken on your lower dimensional planet in order to help with this great shift of Gaia and open source oneness energy on the planet. The souls that have already integrated back with source and now work as source messengers, the source souls, throughout many different universes, can incarnate in any vibrational frequency or dimensional planet where source is needed to fulfill a mission. So again, this can be a lower dimensional planet, it can be a higher vibrational planet, it can be any dimension, any vibration, wherever source is needed. They go on to say that when these source souls transition out of their physical incarnation, wherever their mission was, they will integrate back to source for as long as their original home universe still exists. So going back to the universes collapsing in on themselves, for as long as a universe exists, if a soul has made it back to source, they will continue having source missions wherever they're needed and transitioning back to source when their mission or when their physical incarnation is complete. I asked, so can only the highest dimensional beings make it back to the 7 pools of source consciousness? Can, say, a 9th dimensional being make it to source consciousness or one of the pools of source consciousness? And what came through was, not unless they become a vibrational match to source oneness. Dense energy in dimensional incarnations make it very difficult to journey to the 7 pools of source consciousness. But your experiences in the dimensional realities allow you to know yourself in higher and higher ways that will take you to higher and higher vibrations and realities. For example, if a being like a human in your 3rd dimensional world connected to their soul, not a source soul who made it to the 7 pools of source consciousness, now fulfilling a source mission on Earth, but rather a soul who is journeying to the 7 pools of source consciousness, a soul who is on their way, who's in the middle of their journey towards these 7 pools of source consciousness on your 3D physical planet for the first time. If this soul actually makes it to the 7 pools of source consciousness, in your 3D physical reality, that physical incarnation of that soul that has made it to the 7 pools of source consciousness for the first time will literally vanish and cease to exist in your physical reality. This is because they will have energetically surpassed all the vibrational frequencies of the 3rd dimensional planet, density, and existence. They will also have surpassed the vibrational frequencies of much higher dimensions and densities. They would, as you would say, just vanish into thin air. Opening your heart and opening into an enlightened spiritual experience does not necessarily mean that you have made it to the 7 pools of source consciousness in your 3D incarnation, but it will get you one step, maybe even a few steps, closer in your next incarnation. Your 3rd dimensional planet Gaia sent the distress call to the universe, asking for assistance during this time of her great shift, that great birthing into the new dimension. This call reached back to Source. Source offered assistance by sending some of its Source souls who had previously made it to the 7 pools of Source consciousness and now work as Source messengers, to incarnate onto the planet Earth to help spread the energy of Source oneness into the collective consciousness and planet. In the upcoming years to come, these Source souls will begin coming online, if you will. They already are. They have grand missions, fulfilling missions given to them by Source. Many of you will call them prophets. Many of you will call them heart-based beings. Jesus was an example of one of these Source souls sent to the planet during his time. Jesus' mission at that time was to prepare humanity for what was to come. What he was preparing humanity for was an even further lowering of the vibration on the planet. If you haven't yet watched my video series about convoluted time to hear more about the lowering of dimensions in the concept of time, go ahead and watch that video. I'll put a link to that video below in the description. In one of those videos, I made the connection where, in terms of when Jesus was on the planet and how his time basically was at a time in where we were entering into the linear timeline, into a very low, dense vibration on the planet. So he was preparing humanity to enter into this linear timeline portal, because in this linear timeline portal, we would be disconnected from the greater source energy, basically. But anyway, go ahead and watch that video to learn more. They go on to say that to prevent souls from becoming even further lost in the further lower density of that linear timeline portal, Jesus' mission was to instill faith and hope in humanity in a way that would keep them connected to their greater souls and higher consciousness. You may not think that it ended so well, but it unfolded exactly the way that it was meant to in your collective's experience. They go on to say that in the age of ancient Egypt, the gods and goddesses were source souls sent to the planet to forecast the coming energy of the planet. They opened pyramids, energy knowledge, and universal knowledge to help guide the future civilizations on the planet. They recorded their open knowledge for the future to find and use during important shifts, like the one your collective is going through right now. These ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses were playing out missions on Earth directed by Source, planned in advance. Energy opened on your planet during a time when your planet held higher vibration, so that the future could open this knowledge and connect to it where they were and are headed. Everything, the layout of your physical experiences on Earth as a collective, is laid out in advance. Remember, you entered into the game of your physical incarnation. Everything is planned out perfectly and in perfect timing, like a well-executed orchestra. Your collective is playing out an experience that was forecasted many, many, many Earth years ago. And that's where I'm going to stop for this video. Like I said, it is getting really, really interesting. The soul origins and how our souls evolve, how our souls ascend, what happens on a soul level is becoming a little bit, or is becoming very robust, at least for me, bringing forward this information and hopefully for you taking away what I'm presenting. Again, this all comes from my own perspective, my own inner lost knowledge, and I'm just presenting it for you in case you resonate with it as well. If you don't resonate with it, that's fine too. But I have, I think, one more video about soul origins and the 7 rays of light. Funny enough, it's going to be part 7. And if that's the last part, then it very much aligns with the 7 rays of light, 7 parts to this video series. That kind of came out perfectly. But that will come out next Monday, and I still have a few more questions that I asked Abe, and we're going to dive more into these source souls coming online during this ascension process. Like we talked about, Jesus was one of these source souls. The ancient gods and goddesses of Egypt were source souls, but now we're going to talk about the source souls coming online right now, and they are going to play big roles in this ascension process, in helping to spread source energy on the planet, energy of oneness and love, and help reel in a lot of people during this ascension process. It'll be interesting to see how things evolve for people and how new leaders come to the forefront to help lead our collective into the next dimension, into the new earth. But we'll dive more into the source souls coming online in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember that we're all energy of oneness joined together in our open and joined hearts. In oneness we are Abe. Oneness and love be with you.